And of course, return guest, a friend of the show, as I have been saying to anyone who'll listen, Adam Spencer. Thank you for joining us again.
Deep friend, intimate partner of the show.
Absolutely. A personal friend at this point, as I have also said to anyone who'll listen.
Guest with benefits.
I like it. I like where this is going. Strong start. All right. 12 months on, or 12 months ago, IT Nation 2024, you got up on stage, you presented very effectively about AI as it stood then. We are 12 months down the track. You just got off stage. You spoke about it in a very compelling fashion. Great points made. How about you give us the 3 or 4 key things that have changed in the last 12 months in no particular order? Thanks,
mate. I'm very lucky with this too because, a bit of an insight into the world of keynoting. The world of the keynote is not unlike the Netflix comedy special in some worlds. You write your hour and you just do it, and by the end of the year you've got it word perfect. It's as good as it's going to get. Then you do it for the final time that year and the keynote speaker goes, well, okay, if I want to work for those people again next year, I'll need something entirely new, and they go away and reinvent themselves as a whatever. And the thing I've been lucky enough to luck into with AI and Gen AI as my specialty, and I was talking AI back, I didn't just put .ai on my name a couple of weeks ago. I was keynoting back in 2016 when Google DeepMind broke chess. And that's all neural networks, reinforcement learning. I was still talking then about, wow, this is really interesting stuff.
It was all a bit abstract for everyone else back then, right?
It was. And I'll
it's
be
like
honest
a lot of the stuff you talk about.
Be honest with you, sometimes you'd be standing in front of a room of dental technicians thinking, you're wonderful people. I don't quite see how neural networks are going to change what you do in the immediate future. So the GPT revolution comes on. It's a lot broader. It's a lot deeper. But luckily for me, it evolves so quickly. Anytime I present, I'll look back 6 months earlier, a third, maybe half of all my content's new. Still sits in the same scaffold of what I think are the major points I want to make, but the examples I'm dropping are sometimes things that have dropped a couple of days previous.
It's interesting. We were talking. I talking with some leaders in our business the other day, and we're kind of going around the room and kind of giving ourselves a score out of 10 on where we think we are in terms of AI literacy, like how literate are we? And the challenge I find is like I feel like, oh, cool, I'm an 8 out of 10, I'm a 9. Then I wake up tomorrow and I'm a 5 because something else has come out. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And so we can go later if you want. I'll tell you a couple of my tips to sort of try to at least stay on top. But when I talked today, I talked for about half an hour. Then we deep dived into the MSP space and asked what are some things we're seeing, both in best practice, product design, cyber, et cetera. But the main points I hit today as to what's really changed. So I always point out that the day the world changed in this space was March 14, 2023, when GPT-4 drops. And there's a lovely graph I show of the size of improvement in a lot of standard benchmark tests that GPT-4 achieved.
Everybody can throw that up in post.
Great.
Pressure.
Basically it's the size of those red lines on that graph, and everyone goes, wow. And that's when the world went, wow, there's something going on here. Been lots of models released since then. And one of the things, big questions was, can't wait till GPT-5 comes out. Now, 4's become 4.0 and all this sort of stuff. The first point I made is GPT-5 dropped a couple of weeks ago, and depends who you ask. It's somewhere between underwhelming and okay. It's certainly not that sort of step jump forward again that 4 was to 3.
Yeah, it kind of went in a different direction. Certainly my experience is they feel like they've reined in some of the hallucinations, some of the other stuff. I think you mentioned it before, and the floor kind of going up.
Yes,
right?
yeah, exactly. And some people think it's changed tone slightly, that they want to go back. They enjoy talking to 4.0. Okay. And it's like your partner's gone out and got a makeover, and you're going, I liked you more with the long hair. Can we go back to that? Yeah, one quote I did hear from the guys on Hard Fork, the New York Times tech podcast that I recommend everyone listen to if they want to stay across this stuff. Hard Fork is second only to...
Sorry, what's it called?
Hard Fork. Second only to Business Focus as far as tech AI related podcast goes, as far as I'm concerned. They said it's raised the floor more than pushed up the ceiling because now this 5 is something that pretty much everyone on every plan has access to. It's not hived off just to the people paying large amounts of money per month. The single thing I've used it for that blew my mind most, though other platforms do it as well, but I hopped on and just got it to do some coding for me. I just wanted to create a little maths tester, ask me basic arithmetic questions, give me a sign if I'm right or wrong, 5-second countdown each question, boom. And the video I show is sped up slightly for ease of use, but in less than 2 minutes.
Was it all verbal prompts?
No, I typed it in.
Okay.
In less than 2 minutes, and the prompt you see me putting in, I'd gone backwards and forwards a couple of times. So the entire process from blank screen to what we've got would have been 5 minutes.
Right.
300 lines of code, gets the job done. If I chose to spend an hour on it, it would blow some kid's mind and be totally interactive. Even that thing you've got there, 10 years ago in a first-year computer science course at uni and you handed that in as your first assignment, you'd be getting a B or an A, right? And it just did it in the space of a couple of minutes. I joked that I use Sound Raw, R-A-W, to make my music for videos and that sort of stuff. It took me longer to hop on and make the music that I play with the video than it did for the 300 lines of code to be churned out. Boom. So GPT-5, slightly underwhelming, but that's an interesting drop. But the big push is, now serious conversations about general and super intelligence. And the definitions of these things vary, but if you take artificial general intelligence to be a platform that's better than most people most of the time. Yeah. So you're getting to PhD or something level in the vast bulk of things. And it's quite realistic, ambitious timelines that say by 2030 we'll be there. Okay. The next step's your artificial superintelligence, better than everyone at everything. And again, ambitious, but some people are saying 2040. A lot are saying 2050.
Yeah.
And the old Toby Walsh, the famous book that the great Toby Walsh from UNSW wrote in this space, I think was called 2062? It was given a year, and that was the title, was the averaging of when we'll reach singularity superintelligence from a range of experts he'd asked, and that book dropped just before the GPT revolution kicks off. So you've seen that 2062 dragged forward 10, 20 years in a lot of estimations. Meta's done their giant push. They've created their AI superintelligence lab they're going for. They're reportedly offering the best of the best from OpenAI and Google and all that sort of stuff. Tens of millions of dollars in long-term contracts because Zuck probably feels that Meta's been a little bit behind in some of these sort of aspects of the AI race and wants to push to superintelligence. Do we get there? Some say that generative AI is not the ramp. Others say, yeah, if you just throw enough compute at it, by definition, you won't plateau and you'll eventually have to get there. Really interesting, deeply ethical questions come out of that sort of stuff because as opposed to if you invent a wonder drug that cures a certain sort of cancer at a big pharmaceutical company, and you invent a different drug but does the same thing 3 months later, it's not going to affect your sales figures all that much. People say if you get to superintelligence 6 months before anyone else does, that could be enough just to end.
The game's over.
Yeah, if it's a step jump, if we're not going from 98 to 100%, if we're going from 70 to 100% of superintelligence, and by definition with that sort of thing, it might just ramp up like that once the system can teach itself, etc.
Yeah.
That 6 months could be enough for one tech company or a bad actor or a rogue nation state or something to get a massive advantage. So all these sort of interesting.
Really interesting. I mean, because you saw the ramp on when ChatGPT came out, that kind of adoption was like the biggest adoption sort of ramp we'd ever seen kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
For me, I probably saw it too simplistically. I thought a lot of the investment coming in was about establishing user behavior patterns. Like we've all got very comfortable with Google, for example, right? And once you've kind of using it, there's not a lot of reason to go to Bing. You're kind of there, you're doing it. So ChatGPT 5 or 4 or whatever, I'm actually a little bit stuck in my ways already with that. Like I'm really a ChatGPT user. So that's what I thought the intent behind a lot of this investment and the sort of race was get people using their platform. But the superintelligence rush makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and also with those, I use multiple platforms. And if you even ask the platforms themselves or go to objective sites, it's starting to be agreed, I think, depending on what you want to use them for. Certain, they're all pretty good.
Yeah.
But when I write my nerdy newsletter every week, taking text and turning it into easily digestible scientific popular writing, Claude, most think, is probably best at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grok's a bit better at certain things, that sort of stuff. I mean, they're all good and they're all getting better.
Yeah.
And I'll often take an essay in one and filter it through to another to check what it thinks in terms of feedback and referencing and all that sort of stuff. But, you can play favourites within certain things. In the area of graphics, which is all cutesy, but in terms of actual financial impact, is one of the spaces that's going to most radically transform anything.
Like an idiot like me now can create billboard briefs and stuff like that so easily. Like it's just nothing.
Yeah, I show an ad that was for Kalshi, the betting platform, the gaming platform that dropped during the NBA Finals, and that's amazing, and it's the first ever fully AI ad to run in a major American sporting.
Did you see
event.
the Australian one with the orange everything? I think it was the Australian first AI one with everything was orange.
Yeah.
It was just, I can't remember the brand. Sorry, but that was really interesting too.
Yeah.
But they didn't try and act like it wasn't AI.
No.
They celebrated that it was, right?
Yes.
And that's the whole thing. And I think
But
that's
the
a really
Kalshi
smart
thing,
play.
you watch that and people just go, "Wow, that's
That is next level.
scary."
Yeah.
And I point out that that's still it's still short, sharp, 2 to 3 second chunks is the way most AI of human faces. What they think one of the big barriers was going to be holding the subtlety of a human face for long periods of time without getting a bit sort of uncanny valley. But Grok's done something now where you can drop a photo in, animate it, and it will turn it into a 5-second rolling video.
Does it do it in a racist way though?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's its one called? Spicy. Does it do it in a
Spicy, yeah.
spicy way? I mean,
Yeah.
Elon, just put it away,
Just
buddy.
stop. Just stop.
But you're seeing, and if they get to long form, completely human, realistic, everyday accessible, it just changes.
Yeah, when you combine that
Everything.
with AI influencers now we're seeing, and yeah, that, I guess, video content of, I think you talked about it before,
Yeah.
around how do we start detecting what's true and what's not?
Deep fakes, that sort of stuff. I did something with Alex Proyas recently, the guy who made The Crow and iRobot and all that sort of stuff, and he said it's a double-edged sword here that soon everyone in the world will be a filmmaker, if they want to be, with minimal limits on niche expertise needed to do it. But then how do you monetize? If you are a filmmaker, how do you actually make any money out of being a filmmaker? If there's more, if there's as many feature-length movies being
But
created
that's where
now
marketing comes into
as
play,
they are
right?
blogs, yeah.
It's all about marketing. How do you get your media in front of the people? And that's where, just like music in a lot of ways, a lot of people make good music, have for a long time,
Yeah.
but how does that...
Yeah, 90% of the best songs ever written will never be heard by statistically
No,
anyone.
that's right.
Yeah.
And do you think these kind of things are taking away from creativity, or allow more people to be creative?
Like, probably both, at least in the short term. I mean, it's still at the moment you need a degree of skill and storytelling ability, I think, to be able to play with the technologies properly. And I think you may well see in a lot of these technologies, if you were back at the coalface in the days when you didn't have them at all, or they were very elementary, and you genuinely use them to augment your skill, then you got to the point where you can just tell it to do it. That may well put you in better stead than someone who's only come along when I tell it to do it. Coding's the example I give there.
Yeah.
I think soon you will just be able to vibe code your way through 90% of anything you want to do with coding. But if it suddenly doesn't work, you're a lot more likely to be able to work out what's going on and focus in on it. If you were an old school coder when it was all C++ or Python or whatever, I think you're going to be more adept at problem solving in that space than someone who comes along 15 years from now and couldn't even tell you there were different coding languages. That wouldn't even mean anything to them.
It's an interesting point. I've been doing quite a bit of that myself.
Yeah.
We've been building some stuff, and I've by vibe coding, as you said, been able to build something that I think, me going back and forth with the development team, like, I don't even know if we would have got to that product. To be able to sort of build it myself, but like you said, there were some problems. It was able to point me to say, I think on check between lines 1789 and 1785. So it kind of pointed me to where I needed to go. But like you said, I did have to a couple of times.
Still playing the role of like a really good intern,
Yeah.
helping you, but your skill coming in over the top to solve the problem. Yeah, we're still there, but I mean, look at where that is compared to 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And assuming it's exponential, not linear.
Yeah.
5 years from now,
Interesting things. I mean, maybe touching on the link you sent the other day about the AI-focused, acquisition engine, the American one, and some of the conversations coming out of your industry chats as well. Might be worth touching on, I think, in terms of where it seems to be heading.
Yeah, certainly in our industry, it's shifted quite a lot. We've been talking about it up on stage at the event here around how much it's going to change our own business within our business, and certainly the big money is starting to bet on that, I guess. But yeah, for me, what's more interesting is the change that MSP needs to go through in what we are for our customers, and the type of people that we need to hire, the type of conversations we need to be able to have, and even further that the customer kind of needs to change their mindset about what the MSP can deliver for me. And I find even now I'm going in and I'm starting to talk about this stuff, and like, hang on, you're starting to sound like a business coach, not my IT provider, and it's changing.
I talked about this in the keynote this morning, not just in your space, in general in the space. There's people are starting to ask questions about, are we going to lose the age of internship, the age of
100%.
apprenticeship? And there are certain positives in that if you're suddenly getting things done a lot quicker with fewer people. There's also some real negatives. And the big law firms, the example I give, because it's pretty simple, but it's fairly straightforward. Australia's largest law firms take in 100 interns at the moment every year, 100 grads. They take them in essentially because 20 years from now, 2 of them will be partners.
Yeah.
3 of them will head up practices, some will be great barristers, but 90 of them will vanish. Some of them will vanish within 6 months of walking through the door. Once you set up your own LLMs, like Minter Ellison were almost 2 years ago now, and it can't hallucinate. It's only trained on your data of 100 years of case law, all the relevant textbooks, the last 50 advices your best in the business have written on a certain topic, bang, and you ask it. I think the output of those 100 kids who you're currently paying $97,000 a year to versus an LLM that I presume let's say 20 people could get the same amount of work out of with this way it turbocharges what you do. But that does mean in the future, when you're looking for those two partners, you've decreased the pool you're potentially pulling those people from by 80%. And I'm pretty sure if you go and check who are the partners now, they were the ones who back in the year 2005 were up at 3 in the morning in the law library with pen and paper going, fuck, we've just got to work this out. We're in court in 6 hours. Go, go, go. And that sort of tough motor skill, that sort of real smarts are what then become the solicitors, that become the associates, that become the practice leaders, that become the part. If we cut that off, then that gets really interesting. Now, the flip side, in the case we gave in MSPs, their last few hires in their sort of tech, faults centre, they've trained up all these bots that can handle 30, 40% of all the possible inquiries they normally get. The latest hires are generalists, really sociable, good conversationalists, no disrespect to your very best tech people, not skills all the best tech people automatically have, who are great at engaging the person who's working through while they're being instructed by the bots what question to answer, and once they think they've got a solution, just solving it on the spot. Call and not even realising they're talking to someone who probably technically couldn't solve this issue without the help of the bots, might not be at all technically qualified. If your problem is too thorny for me and my army of bots, I'll handball it over to one of our serious techs. That's reimagining the structure of your workforce. You're not just looking at a room of 50 people going, let's replace him, her, and him with AI. Let's keep them. Yeah. You're going, how can we reimagine the role that person does, enhanced by agents, bots, AI platforms, and think about the role of the technicians, the ones who are getting that stuff handballed through to them. 40% of what they used to do was, have you turned it on and turned it off again? Have you uploaded the patch? Okay, no, I asked on and off again. Oh, okay. Right, mind-numbing stuff. Or stuff that they just get done or leave and wouldn't quite sign off correctly. So even if they'd done a proper job, you couldn't always quickly check if you had to call back thoroughly.
Or you never billing accurate was the ticket summary.
You're never going to get the same tech again if you do ring up for a follow-up and all that sort of stuff. You're changing that, and their life's significantly more rewarding too because they're dealing with the thorny stuff. And maybe even the people who come in and start as the non-tech qualified people dealing with the bots, 6 months in might realise, I'm actually getting a bit of an idea of this, and are effectively getting trained to eventually become your lower level tech people and move up. They're doing the equivalent of cybersecurity degree at Edith Cowan or something like that in handling those sort of complaints.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've heard the conversation a few times around where we're going to get the skills from. But I think society in general has gone through many shifts like this in the past, and I like it too. I don't think I could grow and hunt all of my own food, right? And yet,
you're slim. You don't look like you eat all that much, so maybe it'd be like an Alone Australia type scenario.
There's a lot of parts that we do rely on either other people with the skills, supply chains, other robots in terms of manufacturing things. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a shift. It's going to be a generational shift. But I don't know. I'm maybe I'm alone. I feel quite optimistic about it all.
It's interesting. It's interesting who you ask. There are some who will say, in the short-term augmentation, all that, but it's naive to think there's not going to be some industries where you have a gigantic
for sure.
reduction in the required headcount. And can we find something else for them all to do?
Yeah, we don't have many blacksmiths anymore. No. I mean, there are industries that go through these changes, but I think it's happening way faster than it has before.
The Industrial Revolution took 40 years. This is probably going to have a massive step change in 10.
Yeah.
I think probably the biggest thing for me is if any of the promises around autonomous vehicles are going to come true soon. There's a 30% of the world's population, roughly, give or take, works in transport to some degree, or a transport-aligned industry. So those roles, that's a significant number over a short period of time, and that's where I go, okay, what new roles are those people with that skill set, that access to education, going to step into?
Yeah. What do you think are the most insulated today from change?
The issues, the industries that are safest at the moment.
Yeah.
There was a famous, back when I used to talk AI in the old days, there was a famous survey done by Oxford University mid-2010s where they'd go through all these different industries and put numbers on them. And the one they always said that was close to safest, and it was also fun and a bit tongue in cheek to talk about was hairdressing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and a subject I know little about, but from my limited understanding, when you're there for the human connection and conversation as much as you are the tints and the foils, and it's a long time before people will let a robot cut their hair.
Yeah.
But robots in surgery, will absolutely be safer and more reliable.
Error rates and reliability work longer.
All that. I mean, the number of issues in hospitals that are error related, as much as those amazing people are trying their very hardest on the most dynamic and stressful of environments.
Yeah, and also try bedside manner. I mean, you don't have to worry about assholes. At least for a while, the things where it's still human connection that matter.
Yeah.
So if you're a counsellor, a therapist, people might do a little bit of stuff with their online stuff. Still sitting down with a person's going to matter. If you're in crisis management, if you're in helping people with drug addiction, that sort of stuff, comparatively insulated. Call center staff, really interesting. You're creating a new type of different class of people. The specialists will stay and get work done, but in a basic call center, like it's really interesting watching some of the big banks saying they're going down a certain road, then pulling back a bit when there's some public backlash. But I think the financial arguments are going to be overwhelming for a significant portion of your call centre staff who are clearly, with the greatest respect to them when you deal with them, not subject matter specialists.
No, they're reading scripts.
And if you can change it from a 45-minute wait to talk to a person to a no wait to talk to a bot that can help me most of the time. I think that's the trade-off.
You'll even take that if the bot can only help half the time.
That's right. Yeah.
And then it's a quick sort of, sorry, you are going to have to sit in a 20-minute queue because the queues will halve by definition.
Yeah.
Then you'll take that. Education's the one that just fascinates me because there's so many different aspects to it. Teachers already using these things to prepare lesson plans, so they're saving immense amounts of time in getting it done and loving it. Students, those who use it properly to enhance their learning, it's going to be great. Those who use it to cut corners. My daughter's at the University of Sydney. She works really hard, Ellie. I'm regularly saying to her, darling, I don't think the 8th draft of the essay is going to be that much better than the 7th. You really should get some sleep tonight. Just flogs herself. Getting 88% in essays at Sydney Uni in Government International Relations, like seriously shooting the lights out. She knows she's sitting next to people in class who are writing it the night before on GPT.
Right.
Yeah.
And getting 65. It can't do the 88s yet.
Yeah.
But there's going to be kids...
C's get degrees. I always said that.
Mate, there's kids coming out of elite universities with those C's, at least in an old-fashioned C, you understood some of the stuff.
That's true.
The survey I did this morning of when people were asked to quote back their work and those who'd written it with ChatGPT, 83% of them could not spot a quote from their own work.
Yeah.
So you've really got to change the way you assess at university. And that applies in the workplace more generally. If you want to... If you're offering 20 jobs and you know you're going to get 2,000 applicants, absolutely use an AI to trim down to the best 70. You then have to sit down one-on-one with those 70. And for the 20 you're going to give it to, the final question has to be turning the computer around. Okay, can you actually show me the lines of code you would write to spot the error in this? ... You've got 2 minutes. Keep your hands off your phone, buddy. Do it, please. Right? That you're going to need to be able to do that sort of stuff to check where people are covering their gaps.
Yeah.
But then the great thing in education, both further training and assessing people on what they actually know. I think we might have spoken about this a year ago. You won't have two kids sitting doing the same exam next to each other anymore. If you get the first 3 questions right, you struggle with the first 3. Why not take you onto the harder stuff? Let's find out if you should even be doing this course and where your gaps are. And let's not piss you around with the medium level stuff. Let's go deep straight away and let's use this hour as productively. When I was at university doing 4th year maths at Sydney Uni, so it starts to get pretty hard there. And the toughest, I think, intellectual exercise I ever engaged in my life was one of the lecturers in our course, and there were only about 6 of us doing the course. And he said, so this looks a pretty small course, so rather than do an exam or anything like that, we're going to have a half-hour oral exam for this course. You'll just come around to my office, we'll book a time, you'll come around, you'll sit with me for half an hour. If you haven't done one of these before, and he said, the way it'll go is, I'll ask you a question about the course, you'll answer it. I'll ask you a slightly more difficult question, you'll answer it. And he looked at us and he said, and I'll keep going until I break you. And it was, and I remember this thing, and it wasn't a course I was great at anyway, and I was underdone going in. It was brutal because if he asked you something and started going, yeah, well, you go blah, blah, he goes, okay, you've got that, let's go about this instead. And you're going, and he's just looking for gaps. He's and the secret the secret to doing it was if he asked a question, to flatter him a little bit, go, I loved the way you explained that, because before we got there, you laid the groundwork, didn't you? We went through this and that and this, and you're just trying to run down the shot clock in a game of mental basketball. Bang, 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 which finally got us to this bit, which I'll be honest, I don't really understand.
But we're out of time.
But anyway, hey, is that 3 o'clock? See ya. Examination will be far more like that.
But see, that's and you touched on this in your keynote, right? Which is, okay, that's a great example of bespoke, individualized approaches to learning.
Yeah.
Like as a teacher, but if the teachers are all using the same plan, which is AI based, to get the same lessons or whatever, you sterilize to a certain extent that learning process.
Yeah, that interesting report from MIT that when they got a group of people to write an essay with GPT and a group to go to the library and use pen and paper, it seemed that the ones that they were all good quality essays in the end, but the ones through GPT far more homogenous. That is what wasn't the diversity of thought. Now you can ask the platform, I want to really run some radical ideas in this essay, please, let's go, and you'll get that already. You can get past some of those things, but en masse, if people are using these things, possibly they become more. They go through a bit of a creativity filter. But then, as Jason from ConnectWise pointed out, if that's the bot that's advising you on how to fix a technical fault, yeah, you don't want you want
No, you want some pretty tight parameters.
reliability
on that.
and repeatability and that sort of stuff. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and look, you kind of touched on you need to get it to be creative, and we're certainly seeing that even in our organisation now, trying to train people really on how to prompt really well, and that is definitely a new skill that I think. I've kind of fell in the trap of going, hey, we're all technical people, so people will just learn this stuff. It's actually quite a different skill. It's not a technical skill, and it's something that we're putting increasing focus on.
The other thing you can do there that's really worth your time is look at a particular platform and think, what are the 2 or 3 different ways I might use this? And create individual personas and tell the platform what those personas are. And
it almost the project thing within ChatGPT-5?
Exactly.
I've got exactly the same. I've got one there just for, it's called Tell Me Why I'm Wrong, and I've created it to argue with me.
Perfect. Or it can be Gary.
Well, this isn't enough?
Yeah. It can be Gary, Jamila, and Michael.
Yeah.
Okay, Gary, you are my research assistant.
Yeah.
You will do everything I say. You will not question anything, but you will go and think. You will triple check any stat before you blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Jamila, you're the one I have to ask deep questions about the business with. You really push back on any. You don't let me get away. And you create these separate characters. And then just when you prompt, you'll just go, Gary. And I did one this morning. There was a fascinating article on the ABC News. I saw it this morning. These researchers in Queensland have come up with a breakthrough in creating artificial skin. Applications are obvious for burns, victims, skin conditions, etc. As opposed to the old spray-on skin we'd use, which encourages the cells already there to grow faster. This stuff creates in a lab completely new completely new biological skin, not just to cover over scars, but with hair follicle, with the ability to sweat.
All this like stem cell manipulation?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, and it's early days, but and so literally brushing my tooth with the other hand, right? Found 2 references to it online. Loaded them into Claude, who's my one for writing scientific articles. You know the rules on a blog. Built me out the first draft of a blog on this, please. Bang. Then when I got back to the room a bit later, I had the first 500 words. Now, that's probably taken it from 0 to 50. I'll do some serious work before I release that. Yeah. But I got a first draft of a blog there, and I don't need to. It knows the 10 rules that govern every single blog I write.
Yeah.
Structure is all the same. Number of paragraphs, word count is all the same. Any stats you introduce, if they don't come directly from the source documents, I need at least 2 reputable sources. If I suggest any additions to this and they are in any way scientifically based, you check and tell me whether it's valid to make that claim or not, because I'm not a specialist in this. Blah, 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 blah. It's totally changed.
Yeah.
The way I go about that.
But you got to give it that detail, that context.
That work in creating character beforehand is, the actual then knowing how to prompt is really important.
Yeah.
But I think the back end of creating the thing you're asking, characterizing the character you want the LLM to play is probably just as important. And so much, that's an example of something you can do now so much more powerfully than you could.
Absolutely.
6 months ago.
You know what, I reckon I could avoid like 90% of our conversations by creating essentially a persona called Ross. And it's just like basically be behaviors and values based, start off with the thought that I'm probably wrong, come at me with a better idea.
So Mark Van Riemen, an Aussie guy, voted #1 futurist in the world on one metric recently. And Mark, over the years, has created about 5 million words worth of content. Articles, interviews, books, chapters he's written, podcasts, blah, blah, blah. He's created a digital twin of himself called the Digital Speaker. He's done it on 11 labs for the voice. The voice sounds exactly like him. He's used Delphi for the avatar, all this sort of stuff. He's uploaded it with those 5 million words. You can subscribe to this service and ask him, his digital twin, any question you want about technology, the future, that sort of stuff, in 29 different languages.
Wow.
It will answer back in a way that mirrors 90 to 95% on what you would have got if you'd asked him directly.
I can imagine it would get pretty close.
And it's getting better over time.
Yeah.
So I genuinely think what you're going to have in a world where you could never get 15 minutes. If you work at Commonwealth Bank, you can't get 15 minutes of the CEO's time. You just can't, right? You can get to someone who can get to someone who can get to someone who... But if you ask the virtual CEO a question about strategy or a technology and innovation you want to try and bring into the bank, and the virtual CEO gives you some feedback, and you bounce backwards and forwards with that virtual CEO, so that when it finally gets to the person who decides what the CEO sees, they know it's effectively been through 8 drafts with Matt Common. Then when you do get your 5 minutes with him, he's going to go, yep, cool, trust that, and it's making his job easier. You're cutting out all that. So there will absolutely be digital twins. You'll have virtual CEOs. You'll have a virtual Obama.
I know what I'm doing this weekend.
I was just going to say, and we have got so much content now with you talking about stuff on it. So that's actually really interesting.
Oh, mate, yeah, you could right now. Absolutely. I've got a bit with my maths books and all that sort of stuff. But I'm planning to try and make a digital twin because with my thing in pure maths too, a lot of the stuff that's out there that I didn't say directly myself, but it is the accepted way of proving Pythagoras' theorem or whatever. So I'm quite happy to harvest that and throw it into it because it's the way I would say it anyway.
It's correct. Yeah.
I think I'm going to try and sort of make a maths guru version of me.
So, but here's the key thing, right? And you just touched on it there is AI is only as good as the data it's got access to. You're giving it fantastic data, right? You've got a strong back catalogue. You've got probably 20 years of monthly reports you've issued and all sorts of stuff, right? That it can feed from. I've got way too many podcasts of me talking about marketing. So, but that's the basis, right? Otherwise, it's just either a very little value or bullshit. It's one of the two. And so you've got to have it.
Someone showed me an article just as we were leaving today, but that there are people hoarding, because it's all the data out there that we know has been mined, and there's all these lists now. They took these books, that books. There are people grabbing caches of language and text and data that they know was not being scraped yet by some of these AI engines, and they're hoarding pre-AI training data so that when we run out of it and it becomes the new gold and you need to build a models, and someone can tell you, mate, I've got 20 million books that were in a library in Portugal that I know for a fact not being used in any training models.
Sounds like an episode of a sci-fi show, doesn't it?
Totally becomes the liquid gold to then train the next generation of models.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I know you desperately want to get into 11:30. There's 4 minutes to go. That was a good time check.
Nice.
Love your work, Adam. Presuming
big fan of it myself.
Love that. Very much of my own mold there. Okay, so probably see you in 2026. We'll talk to you about other stuff soon. Thank you very much for coming on.
Absolute pleasure. And keep up the great work you guys are doing. It's a cracking pod, and just having quality conversations from people who know what they're talking about, but also get you thinking a little bit on the content end. It's so important in this space right now.
Thanks, mate.